stay up here very long, just because this is actually going to end up being more of a workshop session. So that's kind of how it's planned. I apologize in advance if your brain cells are kind of cooked by 3 p.m. because this one actually is going to take some thinking, take some writing, and by the end of it, though, guarantee you that you will be very pleased with what you got out of it. Again, my name is Anthony Miller, and the name of this session is Marketplace Analysis, but more importantly, it's the foundation of your marketing plan. So my first job is actually to see if I can help you guys figure out if this is the session for you, probably in the first couple of minutes, not to chase anyone away, but definitely if this session isn't suited to you, I want to make sure that you get out of this 3 o'clock hour what you need to get out of this 3 o'clock hour. So marketing plan. This session is for those who, I tell you, my specialty is B2B technology. My background is being a marketing director, been a worldwide marketing manager at IBM, NCR, Microsoft, Bachelor of Science, Finance from Illinois, MBA, University of Michigan, as well as Rotterdam School of Management in the Netherlands. So I have kind of an international flavor. Most companies hire me to build marketing teams. A lot of places that I've been, I've instituted their first marketing plan. So what I'm going to try and share with you today is the first step of putting together a marketing plan. A marketing plan has three components to it. The marketplace analysis, understanding what's happening out in the marketplace, buyers, competitors, market trends. Out of that understanding who you are as a company, who you are as an offering, the second piece. Then out of that understanding, then going ahead and saying strategically, how do we become who we want to be in this marketplace? And then the last piece that most folks start with is the action plan, right? This is where you're spending. What events are we going to? What ads are we putting out? What messaging should we say? Are we spending on ROI? Are we spending on analysts? How do we execute the sales cycle? And whatnot. If my guess is correct from what I've seen in my experience, some of you, and I'm guilty of it as well, have probably started with action plans, doing tactics, spending. Let's go to this trade show. Let's do these various things, and only then to have to back into justification. Well, how does this help us get to where we want to go? And so what I'm going to try and do is help you to actually on the front end decide who it is you want to be, where you want to go, and then from that to put together an action plan. Does that sound good? Does everybody know why they're here, what they're here for? Now, some of you, if you've done a marketing plan before, great. This is going to be fairly basic, obviously, because we only got 40 minutes. So when I thought of this, I said, how can I get you something that you can get a good foundation, and then when you get back to the office, build upon it. So this is, though I have a technical marketing background, this is the only technology you'll see is this slide. I brought handouts. So when I say workshop, I actually mean workshop, and I actually won't return to that stage until we're done. Can someone help me pass these out? Maybe 2 or 3 someones, just because we're going to have to get these. Now, I apologize in advance. I had printed 25 packets for us to write through. Then when they said, you're going to be in the auditorium, I looked at the auditorium and I said, where's the nearest Kinko? So I went and got 25 more. So I have a total of 50. We're going to be close, but if you aren't currently kind of working on a marketing plan or need to figure out the foundation, maybe you might pass on this, email me, and I'll be more than happy to get you a copy. All right? Thank you. Thank you. All right, while those are moving around, I'm going to move around as well. Has anyone ever seen, this was popular, I think, total quality video, like how to build a house in a day, or something like that. Has anyone ever seen that video, how to build a house in a day? There's this, it's amazing, they kind of structured all this stuff, and everybody comes together, and they build this house in a day. It's fantastic. Another thing like that is, there's this one thing, how to write a novel in 30 days. There's courses for that. This is very simple. What I'm going to share with you is honestly, it's about 20 hours worth of work. And we're going to try and get through it in about 40 minutes. Now, the only way that we're going to do this is that we're going to have to pull some stuff kind of out of your head, right? You're not going to. That's why we're not on the laptop. That's why we're not looking up the stats. That's why we're not doing the web search. But you would be amazed at the thought process and the data that's already in your head. Now, I am going to say that after you get this down, you're going to have to get back and kind of vet some of your assumptions, particularly the assumptions that you're making about your buyers and how they view things, right? You'll get in a lot of trouble guessing the buyers. But having said that, everybody got a pen? Everybody got a paper that needs one? Good. All right, let's just start. Again, some of this stuff is going to be fairly basic, but you'll find some ahas in here, particularly as we move along. All right. So the first page is simple. This is a marketing plan for, and I want you to go ahead and write your offering. So again, it's a workshop. If you have an offering that you're in charge of, please write that there. All right. Second thing, the region, the geographic region covered by this marketing plan. The geographic regions are particular regions. If you're just Southeast U.S., put that down. If you are EMEA, Europe, Middle East, and Africa, put that down. But now we know the offering as well as the region. See, painless, right? All right. Now, just because we're doing a lot in a short amount of time doesn't mean that you can't stop me. I know this isn't anything to stop you on yet. It's pretty straightforward. But as we go through, if there are some things that you want to throw your hand up and ask about, please ask it, because others might want to know. And I think we can still meet our timeline. All right, quantitative analysis. So the second piece, after we understand the scope of a marketing plan, the marketing plan can be for a product, it can be for a business unit. In this case, I've limited you to a product and offering. Recognize that could be hardware, software, or services, but that's for an offering. So our next step is buyers. Everything starts with buyers, right? These are the folks that are going to cut us a check for what we're selling. Before we get into the qualitative analysis, which is how do they behave, what do they do, start with the quantitative. I've listed this here. We won't get into quantitative analysis, but I want you to keep in mind you have to actually look up the stats, how many buyers are in your particular market, which is why we pick a region. As you're looking at statistical sources, is it going to be the U.S. or whatnot? What's their projected spending, right? So now we know how many. We know the spending that they're going to have, which those are two different numbers. Because even if you only have 3 customers, mega customers, but they're spending a lot, that's still a pretty good business. So we want to know the quantity of buyers, and we want to know the amount of their spending. Now, the only other piece we need to know about those two is that they aren't static, they move. So we don't care as much about what they spent in the past or even kind of what they're spending today. We care about what they're going to spend in the future and how many there will be in the future. So that's going to constitute your quantitative analysis. Good? Good. All right. Real simple stuff. Identification. In terms of buyers, believe it or not, some of my clients actually get fairly confused on this one. So I tried to give you statements that help you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, real basic. Who will cut you a check to purchase your offering? And if you think about your financial statements and the revenue line, who's making that revenue line up? So if you could, go ahead and list 3 to 7 of those buyers there, because we're going to need these buyers as we move on. You can list the names. How many people are B2B, by the way? Great. And B2C? B2C obviously is going to be a little tricky in listing names, but you can list kind of groups, demographic groups if you can. I'll give you a couple more seconds to finish. Do the second box. Possible for someone to shut that back right in. All right, so now we've listed buyers over on page 4. And again, this is just some thinking around it. So if you have a look at those buyers we've listed on page 3, especially if you've listed names of companies, just have a look at it, especially if you've gotten up to like 5 or 7, and you'll start to see that there are kind of common themes around those buyers. Either they're large tech companies, or they're, there's always these divisions like large, medium, small. There's the regional divisions. There's they can get more complex about maybe they have a strategic use of IT, or they look at IT as an expense to be minimized, right? They have a commodity view of it. But have a look at those buyers, and if you can, see if you can make up a name for your primary target segment, right? So like large technology companies would be a good name. You can have more detailed names. But here, the important thing is that we start to recognize that all buyers aren't created equal. When you make your numbers, you're going to make them by selling into different segments. I know we've all heard this before. And we're going to find that primary, literally, if you can do well in primary, most of the time you make your numbers. And if you can't make your numbers in primary, you add secondary. I have rarely seen a marketing plan need to get down to tertiary. Just because, again, if you can't win with your best customers, then we kind of have a large issue, right? Now, under primary target segment, all I'm going to ask you right now are the names, because we know some of the customers, we already listed those. You're going to have to do your quantitative to get to size and growth. But has everyone identified the primary target segment? Because we're going to actually need to get into their head to figure out the rest of our marketing plan. Do I have another booklet? No, I'm afraid I don't. Okay. I'm sorry, but if you send me, is there another?
Thank you.
And we're on, we just finished 4. What's an example? Does anybody care to share any example of a primary target segment of buyers that they've done thus far? Anybody? Automotive? As in the automotive companies, the Fords, the GMs? Particular, you care to share your offering as well?
Machine services.
Okay. Machine services to automotive. Great. Do you have a secondary that you identified?
Yes, automated equipment.
Excellent. So that's a great example of segments that we got automotive, we got automated equipment that can go across a bunch of industries. And again, when you think of your revenue line, you're obviously expecting the bulk of your revenue to come from primary. All right, let's move on to 5. In understanding that primary target segment. So now we're going to, even though we listed primary, secondary, tertiary, we're going to set aside secondary and tertiary for right now. Just get in the mindset of, for this gentleman, it would be automotive buyer. or whomever you have listed as your primary target segment. That's what would be listed there. And now the major question is, what benefit does the primary buyer hope to gain from paying you? Right? List the benefits and recognize that this is not going to be your offer listed on the first page. So for example, if I buy a vehicle, I'm looking for reliable transportation. Some people might get a benefit of a status symbol that's associated with the vehicle, right? And so again, if they are cutting a check to you, they expect to derive a benefit. List those benefits. Anybody have any questions about how the benefit they get differs from what we might think we're selling?
What is your question again? What's that last one?
Is there any, does anyone have any questions about the difference between the benefit that the buyer receives and the product that we think we're selling? I wanted to make sure that we didn't think that those were the same thing. Okay?
Can you give an example?
Sure. Jennifer, do you mind if I use your example? Jennifer, we met in the hallway actually as we were putting stickers on the board. And she has a wonderful B2C business where she's boxing up children's parties. You know, she'll put it all in the box, her firm will put it all in the box. But it's not just your standard party city stuff. It's custom, it's design, it's really high-end looking stuff. And then when mom gets this, man, she has everything ready to go and mom looks really together. And so as we talked about it, I think I offered up that she might actually be selling prestige, right? And so what mom is actually buying is looking together in front of her friends. She's like a Martha Stewart kind of benefit, right? So it's not just party supplies that she's selling. She's actually selling a persona, being together. You know, that's the thread count crowd, right? so that's an example of benefits versus what you think you're selling, right? And so that's where I asked the question here on number 2. Based on those buyer benefits that you're delivering, what are you really selling? Now, from a B2B perspective, you might find that you're selling reliability, right? Maybe there's a process that they're doing it with some old software, some old solution, and they're finding themselves maintaining it all the time, and the company that sold them that is out of business. And so now what you're selling them is reliability. You're selling them a lower cost of operation. Individuals might be buying things like, you can say that they're buying things like job advancement, but that gets a little serious. But listing some of the benefits, that kind of helps us to see what it is we're delivering. Does anybody got any more questions about the buyer benefits? Excellent. Good, because on page 6, you're going to have to take that same train of thought in identifying your competitors. All right? So before we might have thought that it is just people who sell what we sell. And they are included. But because we're talking about delivering benefits that just aren't tied to the offering, it's actually who else delivers that benefit. Right? So those will be more of your secondary competitors. Granted, you're going to know your primary competitors. They're usually going to sell what you sell in your space. One note here, too, in terms of competitors. So here's what we're going to list here. Whom else can the buyer pay to get what they want? And I asked that general on purpose so that I don't want you just thinking of those 2-3 folks that you've always been benchmarking. Whom else can the buyer pay to get what they want? List 3 to 7 of those competitors. A major competitor that I always find in my kind of technology circles is internal, right? If I'm going to sell you a solution, there's always some internal group that is doing something similar and that company always has the kind of prerogative to, no, we'll just keep it in-house. Right? So be sure to list that if that's one of your, if you kind of move in those sort of sales cycles. We can group these competitors into types of competitors. Again, internal would be one type of competitor. If we were talking a party store, you might have discount party store. You might have consultants, independent consultants as groupings. But they can be grouped, and you can kind of compete against those groups. But what I want you to go ahead and do is I want you to go ahead and identify your primary, secondary, tertiary. Again, those things again, all I mean is 1, 2, 3. Who's the top competitor? Who's the second competitor? Part of the beginning of my career, I worked for Target stores, and it really, at that stage, it was just Target, Walmart, and Kmart was really all we benchmarked. If you were a department store, we didn't benchmark you as much. So here, and again, if you can win against your primary and secondary competitor, you're probably going to be doing pretty well. So after we've listed those, let's go ahead and start trying to dissect them. So over on page 7, here's the main question here. And again, if we're thinking about our primary buyer, we're starting to traverse this trail of we're only in the mindset of our primary buyer. Never mind secondary and tertiary. Now, never mind your second and third competitors. We're thinking about the primary buyer and your primary competitor. And the big question is, you know, why does the primary buyer choose this competitor? Why does the primary buyer choose to do business with this competitor? And you list those things. And what you'll find is that these are actually strengths. This is why they win, or why they would win. Now, if you can think of other strengths about the company or the offering, feel free to write those below in other strengths. Maybe they're well funded. Maybe they have a high profile leader. Maybe they have a longer history. Maybe they're more well known. Some of those things that you think are strengths, but it might not necessarily be why they're chosen. Feel free to include those there. All right, excellent. Moving on, weaknesses. Again, only from the primary buyer's perspective, why do they not choose the primary competitor? Why do these guys do? And these, of course, are weaknesses. And if you can think of other weaknesses of that competitor, you put it here as well. Now, bear in mind, like I said, we still haven't gotten into the internet and into our LexisNexis and into our stats. A lot of this stuff is how to think about your space. And if you can grasp how to think about your space, you're going to be invaluable to your product team and helping them to think about the space. Knowing the customer, knowing the market is an incredible advantage when you have your internal discussions. So we've done strengths, we've done weaknesses, and most of you will recognize it, you kind of SW of a SWOT. Let's just put a competitor right now. And the third piece, and I'll give you a little bit of background about marketing plans. Marketing plans are like business plans. Everybody has kind of a favorite format. There's 100 different ways to do this stuff. And so what I've tried to do is I've tried to make it short and sweet, help you to ask the real basic questions, but the questions that are going to pay off and how you think about this. So that's how this is laying out. So the only thing I thought that was important from a competitive point of view is what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, and then their positioning. Positioning is pretty special. And it says that we won't cover positioning research, but I'm going to tell you about how to do it, even though we're not going to actually get into it. And the big thing is how does that primary competitor want to be perceived? Very important. It's not how are they perceived. It's not what are they successful, at convincing the marketplace about themselves. Positioning is how do they want to be perceived. So back to my Target days, if Walmart says, what do they say, low prices every day or something, something always, low prices always. I think those are big ones. Right? So, and that's how you find out more about their position. You can look at the web. You can look at press releases, look at what product managers say about themselves, look at what CEOs say about themselves. If they use statements like, we are the company for X, or we want people to choose us because of this, that says this is how they want to be perceived. How many folks follow sports? Any sports followers? A few more. What sport do you follow?
College football.
College football. What sport? Tennis. Tennis. So let's take some of these team sports. Let's say college football, right? In college football, they all kind of have the same goal, right? To score, to win games, ultimately to qualify to win a championship. But within their conference, they've identified the primary competitor, secondary competitor. They've also identified how that team is chosen to compete. Some are going to compete on power, some are going to compete on speed, some are going to compete on ball control, and they've decided, given their personnel and how that coach likes to run things, this is how they're going to win in that division. Right? Does that all make sense? And so what we're doing at this stage is if the goal is to get a check from that primary buyer, and I have competitors deciding how they are going to win, then I have to decide in this space, who are we going to be that we win instead? And the gap between who we are and who we want to be, that is then going to be an action plan. What trade shows do we go to, what messaging, what positioning, how do we want to be perceived, right? So back to this primary competitor, when you're looking at their positioning, definitely get out there, look at their slogan, look at some of their, like I said, some of their press releases. And you can establish a positioning. And it won't be a big, long 5-sentence deal. It's going to be, there's really only a few things you can be. You can be low price, you can be better quality, you can be better wraparound services, you can be more effective, you can be, those types of things. There's only a handful of them. So figure out what they've decided for this step right here. All right, now this page 10 becomes the iterative part. So this actually starts to move to secondary competitors. So the first time, we were still working with that primary buyer point of view. Then we looked at our first competitor, strengths, weaknesses, and positioning. So I'm going to ask you in this, on pages 10, 11, and 12, we're going to do the same thing for our secondary competitor. So 10 is the strengths. Again, why does the primary buyer choose the secondary competitor? And then list other strengths for them. Then move over to 11 and do the same for weaknesses, and remember to stay in the mindset of that primary buyer. then when you get back to the office, you can get So moving to page 13. Now how to evaluate positioning. Now we started off talking about the primary buyer and the benefits that they derive. There's actually a little subtle twist on just the benefits. There's also selection criteria. If any of you have ever responded to an RFP, selection criteria, you're probably pretty familiar with. So again, I'm asking you here to get into the head of the primary buyer and say why, what's the selection criteria they're going to use to choose a solution. I put a note there that says this is the exact wrong way to do it, and it is. This actually is an excellent excuse for getting market research dollars. Ask the customer. I've been at companies where it's been hard for management to invest in asking the customer. Instead, we'll say, let's just ask our sales force. They're close to the customer. Still not good enough. You will find that what the sales force thinks is the selection criteria won't exactly be the selection criteria. So we need to actually ask the customers, how are they making their selection? Now, one thing is listing the selection criteria, which I've asked you to do in number 1, and it says what are the criteria that primary buyer will use to select an offering. So they might say, if it was a transportation choice, right, proximity to home, cost, safety, reliability, those types of things. But we all know that when we make decisions, all of our criteria isn't equal, right? It's not 25%, 25%, 25%. So some of these criteria are like super criteria. You get those right, they select you. And so that's the next thing I'm going to ask you to do, is if you've listed your criteria already, from what you know, go ahead and put a rating to it. That's the second column. Now bear in mind, this isn't what's first, second, third, or fourth. It's not ranking, it's rating. So if it's very important to that buyer, give it a 5. If it's not that important, give it a 1, give it a 2. You can have a bunch of 5s, you can have a bunch of 2s. You probably can't have a bunch of 5s, you can have 1 or 2 5s. But things that are very important, give them a 5. And so this way you now start to remember, you start to realize, hey, all that selection criteria isn't rated equally, which is a good thing to keep in mind when you're doing marketing. Now the next thing is, number 3 here, from the buyer's point of view, when we think of those competitors, they can't do everything well. No one can meet all these criteria really well. Like I said, they have to make choices. They have to make investments. Are we going to be whatever it is they said they're going to be? So now in terms of who they chose to be and how this buyer is looking at them, give them a rating, with 5 being excellent. Hey, if I'm looking for proximity, this thing is right next to me. You get a 5. If I'm looking for proximity and you're across town, you get a 1, right? So for that selection criteria, what rating will you give that competitor or that solution or whatnot from the buyer's point of view? So the primary buyer's point of view and the rating they give. This is important because I have actually found this, is that some of my competitors have built businesses with strengths in all the wrong areas, right? And the real sad part is I've also found that for some of the products I've worked on, that we have built strengths in all the wrong areas, right? So identify, that whatever's important to that buyer, we need to win on that. Any questions on that? Now, I said we need to win on that, but recognize that right now we're only talking about marketplace, so I haven't actually gone internal into your organization and your product. This is all about competitors' products. Okay? All right. Moving on to 14. You have almost completed marketplace analysis. In terms of in the marketplace, like I said, there's only buyers. They want something, competitors competing to provide it. And then the only other thing you need to know about the marketplace is what's this macro environment that everybody's operating in, right? Economy. I've listed some of these things here. Buyers buying less or more, suppliers supplying less or more, tight supply. Maybe there's consolidation, movement amongst competitors, new competitors, the business models entering the market, disruptive things, costs increasing or decreasing, government regulations, industry regulations. Think about your market, and then in this space here, list some of the market trends. And these are things that you're going to have to keep in mind, just like your competitors have to keep in mind. Okay? All right, as we're moving to the end of this thing. Now that we look at all those pieces, we got the buyers, the competitors, market environment. Actually, before I do 15, let me actually reiterate that the only thing we've done is traverse the primary buyer, right? So we actually have to, when you get back to your offices, you'll have to do the exact same process for your secondary buyer. So the gentleman who had, you had automotive companies as one, and industrial, machine shops?
Automated machine.
Automated machines as your second. Well, this is going to be an entirely different set of selection criteria, an entirely different set of needs. You may or may not have different competitors, but they're going to choose, make their selections differently. So you will actually have to climb back through this process again from their point of view. Now, after you've gone through from a primary buyer, you've gone through from a secondary buyer. And honestly, I'll tell you, since I'm trying to shortcut your time, you probably don't need to do the tertiary. If you're ambitious, you just want to, go right ahead. But again, if you can win in your primary and secondary markets, you're gonna make your numbers. I don't know what those numbers are. So after you've gone back through your secondary buyer, now this is kind of the art of marketing plans. The rest of this stuff is pretty methodical. Everybody can follow. It's almost like a computer. But the art of it is to actually, you're learning as you're doing this thing. You're going to learn as you go through the secondary. You're going to have to step back, look at the tea leaves, and kind of say, what is this all telling me? Right? How should we compete with these things that are going on? Now, the best way I saw to make sense of that question is to actually go ahead and summarize all of that learning into opportunities. You know, the marketplace is moving, buyers are moving, competitors are moving, but hey, that seems to create an opportunity for a company that would provide this. Keep your eye out for unmet needs. Right? And so if you can find those opportunities, hey, they look like they might be out of business in a couple of years, then that's going to leave open this, list those opportunities. Now, if we're looking at all those marketplace trends and buyers moving, competitors moving, some of that stuff is going to be a threat, right? If we see that, gosh, voice over IP looks like it's going to do its thing and nobody's going to pay me for long distance anymore, I need to kind of figure that out. I mean, that's kind of an older one, but if you can see that, you can list that as a threat and then decide how you're going to affect this. So again, that will help you make sense of all of that stuff you just learned by summarizing it into opportunities and threats. And that's actually what page 15 has you do. And then lastly, I'll just talk you through this because if you can finish that, that is your marketplace analysis. That's everything that's happening outside of you. Your second step will be, and it's not kind of telling you, your second step is going to be internal analysis. You've learned a lot about primary buyers, how they make their decisions, secondary buyers. We learn a lot about competitors. So when you look inside now, your own offering, your own organization, and you say, what are some of my strengths? Why would they choose me? What are some of my weaknesses? What positioning are we currently putting out? Again, unfortunately, you'll find that at a lot of companies, we haven't even taken a position. Right? It's kind of, this is what we sell, and hope we can sell some of this stuff. So we haven't taken a position, but we need to decide who, or how to look at historically who we've been. Right? And that will be your internal analysis. It'll be under strengths and weaknesses. And by the time you finish that, you can summarize that in strengths and weaknesses. And that will have completed your SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Now, the only other piece after I understand the marketplace, I understand internal, would be, now how do I actually get to strategy and action plan? So out of all of that, we should know how the marketplace is going to look in the future, how competitors are going to move in the future. Then we need to know who we are going to be in that future. Is that all right? Okay. I'm sure I'm the only workshop with a draw. Good, he's fun. So the only third piece was, again, strategy. So now if I say, if the future looks like this, competitors are going to be doing this, buyers are going to want that, then I need to decide who we need to be from an offering perspective, price point, features, strengths, weaknesses that I would like to have, positioning that I think will win because these guys are going to be in that position. And so if that's a future statement, then we back into who we decided we were back in our internal analysis. And the gap between that, again, is your action plan. So again, if we need to be known for a forward-thinking product, we need to be known in consumer products. I had clients that needed to be in CPG, but they were competing in other spaces. And so then, when you start going, what's the action plan? Is everybody familiar with an action plan, or should I spend some time on that?
Just give us an overview.
So an action plan, they're tactics, right? This is the stuff when you think of marketing, and when people say, marketing, man, they just spend, this is the stuff they're talking about. So advertising, what trade shows you go to, we're going to pay for an analyst, any of those types of things. What's the website look like? What's the collateral brief? Any of that type of stuff. Those are tactics. And so, absent what you just learned, companies tend to start with tactics. Hey, I set aside 50 grand, 100 grand, and tell me how you're going to spend it, right? But what I've tried to help you do in this last 45 minutes is to understand the only thing you're spending for is to move from who you are to who you need to be to win. So sure, you can actually be at that trade show, because at that trade show, it's a new industry that we hadn't gone to before. And it makes sense from the objective of who we are and who we need to be to win. Everything has an objective. Right? I think, and so after you get your strategy, who you need to be to win, then you set objectives, and then you just break it down to those action plans, put some numbers on it from the cost and who's doing what. A lot of stuff that you can do to become who you want to be, it's going to actually be free. It's going to be a phone call, it's going to be a meeting, it's going to be things that you can do through Salesforce. Then some of that stuff will have to be paid as well. All right, I think we actually got through a lot more than I thought we would, so I'm very pleased about that. Any questions? All right. I think we're moving. So I think.
But anyway, just in terms of being a niche vendor,
Yeah.
I've been approached with this from a client. It's a great idea because it is going to meet the needs of the aging population.
so new, or there's not a lot of available information about it?
Right, and what has been done in the past has not worked. What this person is proposing seems like a logical plan to meet the needs of the aging population in terms of exercise, health, nutrition, those kinds of things.
So there's a couple of, and let's talk afterwards actually, and we'll get into, but I did want to share a couple of statements that my clients often find interesting. And one of those things is that as you're considering your products and you're considering customers, a guy told me once, I guess, in Rotterdam that he said you can get a customer. He said the first step, like these entrepreneurial ventures, is to get a customer. And that kind of bothered me for a while, but then I actually found it to be true, that before you build all this stuff, spend up all this effort, you sketch it out, what you think this is going to be. You go to the customer you think would pay you for what you might build, and say, if I built it, would you buy it? I have a client now who's Progress Energy in North Carolina who wants to buy some kind of kit that goes, when the guys go up the telephone pole, they can fix that light. And we've literally gotten as far as how many units will you buy? Is it in the budget? And cut in a purchase order before the thing is actually built. And so, with yours, and we can talk more about it, you may find that, let me just go talk to, let me get a customer. And then, and here's the second piece I wanted to leave with you is that, does everybody recognize that every problem we can solve is not a problem that people will pay to have solved? Right? So from a business perspective, not from philanthropy or anything else, from a business perspective, we only want to solve the problems that people will pay us to solve. So, in considering your idea, just because it solves a problem, you got to make sure that there's a problem that people will pay you to solve. And what they will pay you still gives enough margin for employees to use. Barry told me to remind you all that there is voting after this, so I can release you all and you can network some more and do your voting. Unless anyone else has any more questions. Great, thank you all for your time.